Have you ever stopped to think maybe it's not you? Hey, you guys, welcome to Crime Over Cocktails. I'm Tiffany, your host, and today I have special guest and author of I'll Pray For You, Donna Wayles.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I'm running a little bit late. My cat was going crazy. There is a bird in my house.
That's not your bird.
No, we don't have birds.
Oh, God.
So there's like a wild bird, and my
You're
husband
awfully
is
calm. I'd
my
be a
husband,
mess.
no, I closed the door. My husband is chasing it around the house. And we locked the cat in the bedroom where the bird isn't. So I think we're okay.
Oh, my God. That is hilarious.
Oh, never a dull moment, I'm sure.
I totally get that.
Never a dull
Well, it
moment.
is so great to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for letting me. And I even have my oh, now you can't see it. My blue Hawaiian mocktail.
Ooh, I love it. It looks pretty. I got my vodka.
Nice. Well, you know.
So you have had quite the ride, it appears.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I chose the blue Hawaiian mocktail because I actually met him at a church picnic in Hawaii.
Oh.
And so you know, of all the places to meet someone, you would think that a church picnic would be a safe place to meet somebody. Yeah, I was wrong. You would think. I was wrong.
So I'm sure when you first met him, he seemed like Mr. Perfect.
Well, yeah, he was like very charismatic and always happy, and there was always, a party looking for a place to happen. It was, it was great. He was very attentive or what I thought was attentive. He always wanted to be with me and always wanted to know where I was going and what I was doing and could he tag along. I thought that was great. Wow, look at how much he likes me. Not realizing that was, giant red flags of control.
Right.
I just thought it was very sweet that he wanted to know where I was all the time.
And I get that. I think we all feel that way at first because it's like, oh, wow, because you've dated the guys who don't care. And you're like, oh, this is refreshing.
This is great. Okay, well, it was for a while. It was great.
When did you start to see it turn?
Well, because he was in the Navy and on submarines, he was gone for 6-month deployments at a time. So they would be out for 6 months and then back for 3 and then out for 3 months. So I like to say that I wasn't drunk when we got married, nor was I like high on anything. but he wasn't like that all the time, like you were saying. The first time that I remember that he was actually mean to me on purpose, we were visiting with his mom and his younger sister in Florida. And I was always raised to, if you're getting up to get a drink or something from the kitchen, you ask and see if somebody else wants something. It's just the polite thing to do. And so I asked if anybody wanted something, and I was going to go get a glass of water. It was Christmas. We were going to watch Christmas movies with his mom and his sister. We had just finished decorating the Christmas tree, how cute. And so I turned to go to the kitchen, and he kicked my feet out from under me.
Wow.
And I landed on my backside on, in Florida, they have those slab houses, right? So it's a concrete slab covered by itty bitty carpet.
Right.
And I was like, and I started to cry and I said, "You hurt me." "Oh, but you should have seen your face. It was so funny." And I just looked at him like, "You hurt me. That hurt." And he's like, "But your face was so funny. It was a joke." And I'm like, that's not funny. You hurt me. And so he pulled me onto his lap and he didn't really apologize. He was just like, well, it was just a joke and your face was really funny. And like the next morning when I got up and showered, I had this huge bruise on my tailbone where I had landed. And I thought, there's something's not quite right. But then, but then it's Christmas and you just get caught up in all the other things, right? And you don't really think about what really happened, so.
Right. Well, you don't want to ruin the holidays, but that could have gone really bad. What if he would have broke something or, that could have been serious.
It could have been. And he just brushed it off like, oh, your face was just so funny. Oh, no, that wasn't funny. You hurt me.
Yeah. Pain is not funny.
Pain is not funny. No.
Was this before you guys got married or after?
No, this was after. Before we got married, he was just really clingy. So there was a time I was living in Hawaii teaching at a private school there, and this was his first duty station in the Navy. And we met, like I said, at the church picnic, and I had another friend who was a college friend. In college, you kind of sit with all the people who had to have the same letter last name as you, right? So I had sat with this guy in like freshman orientation, history of Civ, statistics, all the way up through. And he was flying through Hawaii for a business trip or whatever. And I wasn't married and I wasn't like seriously dating. I call him Dirk in my book, but I wasn't even seriously dating him. We had hung out a couple of times, but that was it. And so I was having a lunch with, a friend from college that I had been 4 years sitting next to in class. And he must have called me 7 or 10 times, just crying. And I'm cheating on him. And how could I do this to him? And this was just so rude. And I'm like, I don't understand. I will talk to you, because we had plans to double date with another couple after lunch, right? I was going to have lunch and then I was going to date with, double date, and we were going to go whatever we were doing, mini golf or something. And finally I said, look, I will talk to you when I'm done, when we're done with lunch, because, you're interrupting lunch. This is, and so it was a lovely lunch. It was, sandwiches or salads or, anything. And then I went to the house of the other couple that we were going to double date with. It was her mom met me at the door and she's like, I don't know what you did to Dirk, but he is in tears and you need to apologize. Apologize for what? And she's like, well, the Bible says that if somebody has something against you, that you should apologize. And I'm like, I went to lunch with my friend. Like, I was just baffled by the reaction. And she said, well, he's in tears and it's really bad and you should apologize. And I went, I don't know what I'm apologizing for, but okay. So I'm like, look, I'm sorry that you're upset. And that was like, oh, okay. But to this day, I'm like, should not have to apologize for going out to lunch with an old friend from college. It just goes to that possessiveness that I didn't notice until later.
Well, it seems like I've heard from so many times, once you do get married, it's almost like a light switch flips and it becomes more control. And it's just like, now you're theirs.
Yes, absolutely. And there were times when he would leave marks on my body on purpose, because that would, like, hickey kind of stuff, because that was how he showed that he owned me. And I was like, okay, but growing up in the very extremely conservative world that I grew up in, we never talked about any kind of marital relations or sex or dating. It was all sex is evil until you stand in front of the preacher and you say I do, and then it's okay. So there's no
No middle ground.
There's no middle ground, none whatsoever. And so I, growing up like that, had no idea what was going on. And he absolutely took advantage of that.
Yeah, I can see that. He sounds like a narcissist in my opinion. So
Absolutely.
people say they can almost smell out the vulnerable. And I do agree because I was sniffed out by somebody and I totally get it. It's like they can almost feel that you're vulnerable.
And not just vulnerable, but naive.
Yeah.
I was most definitely naive. I didn't understand how he was grooming me to do what he wanted, basically, to be his perfect possession.
Yeah. How long were you guys married for?
We were married, like I said, for 12 years, but he was out to sea a lot of that time, and things would get worse, and then he would go out to sea and everything would be all fine, fabulous when he came home, right? Because it was 6 months, it was 3 months, it was whatever. And there was this, well, you understand the cycle of violence or the cycle of domestic violence, right? So when he would come back, it would be all honeymoon because we hadn't seen each other in so long. And then you never know how long that's going to last until you're walking on eggshells trying to figure out what is it that I did or didn't do or thought about doing that I didn't do, before the explosion comes.
Absolutely. Because once it comes, there ain't no going back for a while.
Right. Well, and because of the way that I was brought up, and I told you about the lady who told me I needed to ask, to apologize to him because of the way I was brought up, it was always me, right? Even though he blamed me, but I blamed me, right? So I was brought up in a very introspective kind of way. There's got to be something wrong with me. There's got to be something. What did I do? What did I wear? What did I make for dinner? What shouldn't I have made for dinner? I forgot to buy his favorite soda at the grocery store one time, and that was just horrible. There was never any rhyme or reason. And then one of the ladies who was back then, the submarines were only men. So it was a Navy wives support group. Now there are women on submarines and they call it the family support group. But back then it was just a bunch of women who, we hung out and literally our husbands were in the same boat. But one of my friends who had two little kids basically said to me, look, maybe you need to go to the counseling center. She said, they really helped me. And I think they can help you too, because you're a different person when my then husband was around. And when he wasn't around, I just seemed so much more relaxed and so much more like myself. And she said, I know they can help you because they helped me and I'm a bigger mess than you. And so I laughed and said, okay, well, maybe. And of course, about that time, then my husband came home from sea and I was filling out the paperwork and I was, all the questions and stuff. What are you writing about me? And I said, well, my friend said that this helped her. Maybe I should go. Oh, yeah, you need to go find out what's wrong with you. So he gave me his permission to go find out what was wrong with me. But, as I sat there a couple weeks in, talking about sex and talking about marriage and talking about relationships and trying to figure out just my thoughts out loud, the counselor put her hand on my leg and she looked at me and she said, Donna, what if it's not you? And I had never considered that before. That was completely new and just out of left field for me. Wow. What if it wasn't me? It was like the light bulbs kind of came on.
Became
Wow,
empowering then because you're like, you know what? I don't think it is me.
maybe it's not all me. Now, see, I had been brainwashed enough as a child to know that I had part of this, right? But I didn't own it all. This wasn't all me. So that was crazy. Like this whole crazy idea. It's not me. Like I have a personal space bubble. I'm allowed to say no when I don't want to have sex with my husband. Of course, he didn't allow that, but I am allowed to say no. And, for everybody out there, look, you have a personal space bubble. You are allowed to say no. It's your body. And that was something that if I said no, he would wrestle me to the ground. And basically, it's marital rape when you say no.
Oh, wow.
And so I was shocked at these new revelations. I was allowed to say no. I was allowed to say, don't touch me. And so he came up with, instead of me saying no, he came up with a chore chart, kind of like you would give a 5-year-old, except that if he did household chores, I would do sexual favors for him.
Huh.
And I looked at him and said, no, you're not 5. I'm not doing this. And you help around the house because you live here.
Right. Wow, I've never heard of that one.
That was just a new level of crazy. And that was toward the end, like the very end. But it got really, really controlling. I was not allowed to answer the apartment door. I was not allowed to answer my cell phone or the house phone if he didn't know who was calling. He did not allow me to go anywhere without him or without knowing who I was going with, how long I was going to be there, and when I would return. And it got to the point where there was a couple from our church who came to visit us on a Tuesday. They do this visitation thing and, thanks for visiting our church and this kind of thing. And they came and I asked the lady to come help me make coffee because I don't drink coffee. I don't make coffee because I don't drink it. How do I know what it tastes like? And so I asked her to come in the kitchen and help me make coffee, and I had made cake or whatever. And I said, my husband's not she said, you should call so-and-so. You're about the same age or whatever. You might really like them. And I said, no, I'm not allowed. My husband doesn't allow me to make phone calls or go anywhere that he doesn't know. And she said, well, dear, it's probably just as well. It really is an evil world out there. And I was like, I'm not getting any help from her today.
No.
I was not getting any help from her at all that day because she was just dismissing like, oh, well, it's evil. He's trying to protect you.
No, that is not a good response.
No. And so the other time that I reached out for help was I talked with, and if you can't talk with the minister of your church, then you have lots of problems, right? So I mentioned a little bit about my husband's pornography addiction, basically. And then he wanted me to reenact whatever it was. And I did not feel comfortable doing that, right? Remember, I grew up really conservative and, all this kind of stuff. And so I'm feeling really, convicted. I'm feeling guilty. How dare, I can't do all this stuff and
uncomfortable
and way uncomfortable. Just, all kinds of stuff. So we lived in Hawaii and he's like, let's go have sex on the beach. And I'm like, no, first of all, there's sand and I don't want sand in places that sand shouldn't go. But secondly, there's people and, that's not a no. And so it was just one of those, no, I'm not going to do this with you. And so I chatted with the pastor just a little, like I didn't even tell the pastor half of the things that I was subjected to. And he called my husband in his office after the service and talked to him. It must have been an hour. It seemed like forever. But when he came out, his face was white. And he looked at me and he said, "Get in the car, buckle up." And I was like, right, oh no. And my knuckles were white, holding on so tightly to the edge, to the car seat. He would go 80 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone, slam on the brakes, and then do 20. And 80 and 20 and 80 and 20. And he said, "I hope I'm scaring you, because you'll never humiliate me again like that, ever." And it was a 20-minute drive to our apartment. And I was, just praying. I didn't know whether I wanted to die right then or just, kill me, get it over with, or I don't know. And we got to the parking lot. He put the car in park, turned it off. And before he got before he was able to get out, I unlocked our apartment door and ran into the bedroom, and I locked the bedroom door, and I fell on my face just crying. And I could hear him yelling, "That's what you get. You embarrassed me. We can't ever go back to that church again." And I remember praying, my favorite psalm was 121. "I will lift up my eyes into the hills from where does my help come from? My help comes from God." And then I added, "because nobody else is going to help me right now. There's no one else that can help me. Only God can help me at this point."
It's a dark place to be.
There was no one. My church friends, he had told them that I was going to have an affair and run off with a younger man and go live in a trailer in Florida. I was evil. I was all these things. The only ones who really believed me were not even my church friends that I was really close to. They were the Navy Family Service Center and the Navy Family Advocacy Program. I can tell you that those women saved my life. They really did. I didn't believe, because again, naive and innocent, I didn't believe that he would ever hurt me, not realizing that he already had, but he wouldn't ever try to kill me. And my counselor said, "Well, you need to do this just in case. Get all your papers in order." We had adopted my daughter at that point. She was about a year, maybe a year and a half old. Get all of your papers, get all of the, make sure you have keys, make sure you have a change of clothes in the back of your car in case you need to leave, like a go bag, basically. Keep it in your car, keep it hidden, make copies of Social Security cards and all that stuff, but keep it in your go bag and get right and have a person that you needed to call. I never expected to have to do that. But they told me when he was pacing or yelling or something that he was getting ready to explode, because I had gone over some of these things with my counselor. And I could hear him pacing, and I could hear things smashing in our bedroom. Mm-hmm. And I had come home from being a mentor, and I had just given this whole training on how to read the sailors. They call it an LES, but basically it's their leave and earnings statement. It's their pay stub. So here's how you know how much money you get, and here's how you know how to budget and all this kind of stuff. And I had just come home and I was changing. But when I got home, he had sorted all of my belongings into what I was allowed to keep and what he was taking. Mm-hmm. Because he was going to give them to the next woman that was going to share our bed, is what he told me.
Like sister wife kind of deal?
No, he was dumping me and he was going to find somebody else within 24 hours. Right. So the bed was not even going to be cold and he was going to replace me. That was it. And I'm like, where's my jewelry? Where's my, even my cosmetics from the shower? My favorite was like an orange sugar scrub, the orange smelling sugar scrub. he needed that. Why? My shampoos and my underwear. And I'm like, where is my favorite bathrobe? I'm going to give that to the next woman. That's my bathrobe. And I'm thinking, how weird is that? Like how demented do you think this woman is going to be? That, where like he's giving my underwear to the next. Really? I'm thinking
just to hurt you. It's a tactic.
Absolutely. But I was like confused at that point, right?
Right.
So I went to the kitchen and I should not have turned my back on him. That was my bad. I shouldn't have turned my back on him. But I picked up my phone and I was calling my friend Rhonda because she was my just in case. And I'm like, Rhonda, and I'm dialing. And just as Rhonda picked up, he grabbed me by the back of my neck and my arm. And I don't know how I kept the phone up to my ear, but he picked me up, walked me around the corner, and slammed my body into the storm door of our second floor apartment. I'm not leaving, you are. And he slammed me into it. And I remember trying to get this hand, because the other hand was up by my, holding my phone, like, please help me, please help me. And I hear Rhonda saying, hold on, Donna, I'm getting help. I'm going to call 911 on my other phone and I'm going to send somebody to help you. Just hang on. So I'm listening to her call 911 and I'm trying to get the door open, right? The latch open to stop him from smashing my body into the storm door. And somehow my hand went through because the top was glass and the bottom was screen. So my hand went through the screen. I pulled my hand back through the screen and somehow I found the latch and I got it open. And I remember touching the door frame, right? The door frame. And then I remember touching the bottom of the stairs, and they were 13 concrete stairs. I believe with all of my heart that angels carried me down the stairs that day because I did not touch one of those stairs between.
Wow.
And I held that phone up to my ear and I ran into, we had this trash enclosure, right? Because it's a condo kind of association. There's a trash enclosure and I hid between the trash cans and tears are just running down my face. And what I didn't know was that there was a cut above my eye that was running blood down my face too. But I'm sitting in there and he comes running out and he's like, I'm taking your car because you don't deserve it. I'm taking everything. And I don't know what got into me, but I was like, well, what if the baby needs to go to the doctor? And he's like, all right, fine. And he threw my keys in the weeds, got his keys and stormed out in his truck. And it was just crazy. So that was the last time that I saw him. And I had his perfect handprints on my arm, the back of my neck, and across my legs. I had the storm door imprint. Crazy.
That is crazy.
And I had to sit in the emergency room and have the detectives take pictures of all of my injuries. And I almost felt, well, not even almost, but it was kind of an out of body experience. Like I'm watching them do this to my body and just not even, because I was so abused at that point that I just separated my mind from my body.
It's the way that you can handle those things. Sometimes
Absolutely.
it's the only way to disassociate.
Exactly. But I got away from all of that and I'm so glad. But a couple years after our divorce, I got a call from the Navy detectives who had worked on our case. And now we have to say allegedly, right? But my ex-husband was accused of rape 3 more times when he was in the Navy. But the women that he raped did not remember enough to convict him, basically.
We were scared.
Absolutely. And they were scared that he was coming after me still. And to this day, there is still, I've had someone tell me, even in the last couple of years, and he threatened to kidnap my daughter on her 18th birthday to show her what a wonderful person he was. I took him away from her, I took her away from him. And I was told that he has a storage unit with little girls and women's things for her so that when he meets her someday that he can give all that to her. And I'm thinking, oof, like, why is he not locked up? The whole, like, how do you get off that many times? And he got off in the state of Washington where I lived, where we were married, because he didn't hurt me bad enough. And it was his first offense.
That stuff makes me so angry. We need reform. We really do. We have to. There's a pattern and they don't stop. It doesn't stop with you.
No, it didn't stop with me.
One. Right.
There's 3 more women after me at least. And those are just the ones who came forward, knowing that the military is not the most friendly toward sexual abuse victims. And so they're a lot better than they used to be, but they're still not great.
They protect their own.
They absolutely do. So, it's just, for me, it's a conscious decision to go on with my life, right? To put all of that, not necessarily behind me, because I'm still working through it. Obviously, it's been like 14 years. But, recently I was diagnosed with PTSD. Well, of course because now it makes sense, right? Of course I do. I jump at loud noises. I don't like people yelling, especially men's voices yelling. That really just sets me off. And I have this really big personal space bubble. I don't like people behind me, but that doesn't mean that my life is over.
Absolutely not.
But I have chosen to share my story because there are other women who are out there like me, naive and just somebody's taking advantage of them. And it took someone to tell me, hey, look, maybe these people can help you like they helped me, or have you ever thought that it might not be you? And those kinds of comments really made me think about that it might not be me.
No, it's so empowering.
It absolutely is. Absolutely is. So if you don't mind, shameless self-promotion.
Yes, your book.
My book is called I'll Pray for You, but it's called that sarcastically because when I went to the head elder of my church, my abuser had been there first, of course. And the man stood with his arm across the back door of his house and he didn't let me in. And these are the people that had hosted my baby shower, 18 months ago, and gone out to lunch with his wife and shopping and all this kind of stuff. And he said, I'm sorry, we can't help you anymore. He's dangerous, meaning my now ex-husband. My husband then was dangerous. And I said, I know. And I pointed to my black eye and the bruises that I had on my arm. And he said, we can't help you anymore, but I'll pray for you. Good luck. And he dismissed me. And talk about shattered. I had grown up in the church and I had done all these things. And here I was just done, just dismissed.
Discarded.
Yeah. If sharing my story can help someone else not feel that discarded, it's been a tough road, but I know that God loves me. I have a wonderful man now who is, my second husband who is chasing a bird around my house right now, trying to get it out of my house. And my daughter is 18. She's a freshman in college. And life is just so good. And there are second chances and there is true love. And, my husband now is a planner. And we laugh that his backup plans have plans. So we have a plan and a backup plan and then a backup plan to the backup plan. but you know, that works with my anxiety, right? And so there is that person out there that can help you get through these things. And it's been a long road, but I can sit here and tell you that despite those things, that life is good, and yeah, life is great.
It's so great to hear. I know, like, I love hearing everyone's like happier ending, because sometimes you just got to let go of everything. You got to let that person go. And that's when you will find who you need.
Absolutely. And that was, for me, that was a conscious decision. You know, he can take his life down the toilet, but he's not taking me, and he's not taking my daughter. And it was tough. That's a tough decision to make.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's scary.
Oh, absolutely. Like, there are people who say, oh, I'm going to help you, but then they're scared. They don't know what to do either.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why these are good. You need good resources, and to know that you're not alone. This happens more than people think, and there are ways around it. There
Absolutely.
is a brighter future, and it can happen. It can happen to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My ex-husband is the reason that my attorney actually got a concealed carry permit.
Really?
Yes. So after he assaulted me, I did not want to go in the ambulance, because what am I going to do with my baby at that point? Right? So, my friend had come, and she agreed to take me and the baby. We moved my car seat into her car, to the hospital. But when the EMTs and the MPs got there, so because I was living on the Navy base, the Navy military police had to come. And they always come in threes when it's domestic abuse, because man and wife may, the two people who are fighting against each other. But then when somebody steps in the middle, then both of them are against that person. And so they always come in threes. So then they outnumber hopefully the people who are arguing. So there were 3 military police officers, and then there were a couple of ambulance EMTs. And the first question they asked me was, do you think he tried to kill you? And I was like, no, why would he do that? I was wrong. Because as I was sitting in the hospital with the neck brace and the pictures and all the things, he told the arresting officers, they didn't arrest him until 12 hours after the assault. And they only arrested him because he tried to get back on the base to come home to the house. But he told them that, get this, he went to the bank and withdrew the money from our savings account. He took himself out to Red Lobster. I'm sorry for Red Lobster, but we'll never go there again. But so he took himself out to dinner, and then he went to see a movie because, he really just needed some time to relax by himself.
Oh my goodness.
So he tried, and then, so as they're talking to him, and they're questioning him in the, the room that they always show on TV, right? The questioning briefing room or whatever. He actually told them that if he found me, he would finish the job.
Wow.
And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why would you even say that? But between that and all of the things that he took that were mine, right? Like my underwear and all that kind of stuff, they're like, he's like a sociopath, right? Like a psychopath. Because he took trophies, basically. He took some of my stuff, and then he took some of our daughter's stuff. Like, and it was just creepy. So I had to live in hiding. So I went home with my friend, and I called her Chloe, I think, in the book. But I went home with Chloe because her husband had gone on the submarine. Mine could not, because he was telling me things like he was going to change his name and move to South Korea, and I would be sorry that, that I was going to be a single parent. And I looked at him and said, "You're in the Navy. I'm a single parent half the year anyway. So what difference it made." I did regret that, by the way, but the idea that he was going to change his name and then the world would be a better place without him and all this kind of stuff. And so when I went to my counselor, I said, I think these sound like he's suicidal. And she said, "Are you sure you want to say that?" And I said, "Look, I have a teaching certificate. I know that if I don't say something, that I can lose my teaching license. And I really would like to teach again sometime, when my daughter turns 5, so she can go to school and I can be, whatever." And she's like, "If you tell me that, I'm going to have to blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "Yeah."
Have him Baker acted, right?
"Yeah, you're going to have to take action." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think you need to take action." And so that was the catalyst to the beginning of the end. He was super paranoid. I stole his medical records and used them in our divorce proceedings. I didn't. But my lawyer was so excited that he admitted his own medical records into our divorce proceedings that said that he was like manic depressive and he was all these, just wacky kind of things. And I was like, and my lawyer said, we couldn't have entered this if we wanted to because of all the HIPAA laws, but he did it himself. Just
wow.
Just to spite me. My lawyer's like,
right?
If I knew how to do a cartwheel, I would be doing cartwheels across my office. Fabulous. So he told the Navy that I was just a crazy wife who was having an affair. I was just trying to get him in trouble. And I was living in hiding. And he would drive by the house where I was staying at night and go really slowly trying to find me. My friend Chloe hid my car in front of her husband's truck under a tarp in her garage so that he wouldn't find my car.
Wow.
I was not allowed to go anywhere without my phone. I had to tell somebody, I had to tell Chloe where I was going when I went. And when I arrived, I had to call her and tell her I got there safely. And when I left, I had to call her again and tell her I was on my way home. I lived with my phone. That was my lifeline. And every day, the Navy detectives would call me as a health or wellness check because they were sure he was going to kill me.
None of this makes sense. Was he ever arrested? Did he do any time? For them to be that concerned and for him to tell them, if I find her, I'm going to finish the job, and nothing came out of that?
They believed him. His command, the Navy, in fact, the NCIS, and I never thought they were real, right? So the Navy detectives, because it's just a TV show, right?
No, I get it.
So the NCIS detectives that I worked with were so kind and they were so concerned about me that they called me every day as a wellness check. One of them called me. Somebody checked in with me every day to make sure I was still alive. I went to get a restraining order, and what they told me was that a restraining order is just a piece of paper. It won't stop a bat and it won't stop a bullet. Don't be where he is. And if you see him, you need to not be there. Call us, but call us on your way out. Don't be there. His command did not believe any of it. They argued with the detectives, and they told the detectives, and the detectives said, if something happens to her, all of you are going to be court-martialed because you did not believe her. I sat for 2 days in the NCIS headquarters, debriefing, telling them all the things that I had been through.
Plus, you have pictures.
Plus pictures. It was awful. But I sat for 2 days with them taking my statement of all of the times that I had been raped or bruised or. And the one question that made me just freeze was, did you ever leave bruises on him? And I was like, I just looked at my victim advocate who had been sitting there, and we're on like hour 12 of 16, like 2 8-hour days that I had been there. And she just put her arm around me and she said, sweetie, they're not blaming you. And the detective kind of figured that I was going to say yes. And he said, good for you. That means you fought back. Because I left bruises on him, right? That doesn't make me, he was trying to explain to me that when I left bruises on him, they were bruises from my saying no and fighting back, not bruises from me being the abuser, is what he was trying to convey.
Okay, because I'm like, wait a minute.
And and so that's where I went too. I'm like, oh no, am I guilty? Am I like, oh no. And so that's when my victim advocate put her arm around me and she's like, look, that's not what he's asking. What he's asking is, did you, were you able to fight back sometimes? And yeah, but I'm 5'2" and he was 6'4" and 200 pounds. There was not much fighting back to be done. But, I sat there for 2 days giving statements to these men, and they are just, what I was told later was that my case was one of the most horrendous that those two detectives had ever seen.
Nothing got done.
Nothing. He had probation for 2 years. That's it. It's awful. And then he got off after allegedly raping 3 other women after I divorced him. It's awful.
Sick.
So I was living in hiding. He was stalking me. My attorney actually applied for and got a concealed carry permit just because of my ex-husband. He came into the office and started taking pictures of the layout of his office. And my attorney called the police and had him removed. But still,
that's creepy.
That's creepy. And he also went to my counselor's office and started yelling and harassing her because how dare you tell my wife that she's, a person and has her own personhood and her own personal space.
How dare you teach her to say no?
How dare you teach her to say no? Exactly. And so he was in trouble for that too, right? He's like threatening and harassing all these people. So when it came time for us to go to court, they actually told me to come 30 minutes early. And they snuck me in a back door and hid me in a little room where he could not get to me. And there was a bailiff outside of the door of that room. And my victim advocate would come in and my lawyer would come in and we would talk before we would go into the family court to the judge. And then it got so bad that, because he would stare at me and try to like intimidate me across the courtroom. And I was just shaking. Like I couldn't like barely function. And my attorney asked for a second bailiff in the courtroom. It got so bad. He asked the judge for a second bailiff in the courtroom. And they would put me behind a pillar where he wouldn't have direct line of sight to me. So he couldn't see me to intimidate me. It was so bad.
Wow. What did the judge say?
The judge was just, I don't even remember. All I remember is how traumatized I was from all of that. And I would be escorted by the bailiff in and out of the courtroom for my own safety. my attorney used to be, or before went into private practice, he was a district attorney for the county there in Washington, and his specialty was prosecuting domestic abuse cases. And so he took my case, obviously, but he ended up putting his phone number unlisted. Like I said, he got the concealed carry permit. My ex-husband was just so, I couldn't go to the grocery store by myself. I couldn't go out with my friends. I was in hiding and he was out doing whatever he could do. And it was just so awful. And finally, and he told me if I ever left him, he would use our daughter against me. And he did. He wanted visitation, which was just crazy because he never changed a diaper. He never did anything for the baby.
Because it's the CU, not the baby.
Right, exactly. And so, it was to make us look like the perfect little family, right? Mom, dad, and baby. And I remember having to keep her quiet so that she wouldn't disturb him when he was playing computer games or whatever. And he insisted that, he loved her so much. He just needed visitation. And so every Saturday I would take her to a mutual friend's house, to the pastor's house, and he wouldn't do anything with her. The pastor's daughter ended up changing diapers, and she got sunburnt because they went blueberry or blackberry picking or whatever, and he didn't put any sunscreen on this little child who's not even 2. It was just crazy stuff. And so my attorney finally said, look, she has a teaching certificate. If she stays here in Washington State, we will not honor that teaching certificate because it was from South Carolina. We won't honor that. And not only that, they wouldn't even honor my 4-year bachelor's degree. So I would have to start again and take 4 years of college and go through all the student teaching and stuff again. And he said, look, if you let her go, it's August. She can get a job in South Carolina. She won't be a welfare mom. She can, we can arrange video visitation. And finally, the judge said, okay, August 1st, she can go. And I don't think I slept the night before at all. My friend took me in. I had to put my car on a car carrier because I couldn't drive with a baby, and I was so traumatized. I had a baby and 2 cats. I ended up taking 1 cat to the shelter because I just couldn't afford to feed it. I couldn't afford to ship it across the country. But the other cat was so old that they told me that they would euthanize him. And I was like, you can't euthanize my cat. I've lost so much, right? There's only so much you can lose.
Absolutely. Right.
So there's only so much you can lose. And so his name was Oscar. So I picked up Oscar and the baby, and we had put my car in a car carrier, and there was an older man and his wife that had hid my car in their barn with a tarp over it again, because again, my ex-husband is stalking the neighborhoods looking for me. They drove me to Seattle and put me in a hotel that adjoined the airport. And I remember putting a chair under the doorknob of the hotel room going, please God, don't let him come, because he knew I was going, but he didn't know where I was, and he didn't know my plane ticket and any of that. But the most dangerous time for a domestic abuse victim is when they leave, because that's when the power and control becomes no more. And then that's when they go absolutely crazy. And so I was expecting literally all hell to break loose. I don't think I slept all night long, but the baby slept. The baby slept, and I had the TV on because I needed noise. I needed something. We got to TSA, And I had the stroller, and somebody had given us a baby toy. It was like it was a teddy bear, but it had a little, like, it vibrated. So it had a little motor inside. When that went through TSA, I thought they were going to empty the airport. It's got something inside. And I was like, oh God, please. Can nothing go my way? Can nothing go my way? And they were going to slit open her teddy bear. And I was like, that's my baby's teddy bear. And they're like, but there's something inside it. Like,
yeah, a voice box.
it vibrates and it plays music. Do you want me to show you? No, don't touch it. And I was like, okay, but it's just my baby's. Like, I'm ready to cry because I had to hand my baby to a stranger behind me because the TSA agent can't touch the baby. And they can't touch anything that, they can't touch the stroller. They can't touch and I'm like, what do you want me to do? And the poor woman, there was like an older lady who was holding my baby at this point. And I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, it's a toy. You press the hand, it vibrates and it plays a little song, and it's her favorite toy. And finally they were like, oh, all right. And so the lady handed me back that I put the stroller through and that finally, and I was like, can anything else go wrong now?
You never say that.
Right? I'm thinking to myself, please, can we just get on the plane? And so finally, we're sitting in the airport and I am just on high, fight or flight kind of thing. And we get on the plane and the plane took off. And that was the final moment that I really felt like, because I'm sitting up against the window, like nobody noticed me. There's just a baby right here, but nobody noticed me. That was the final, like, I felt like I could finally relax and I was safe for a few minutes because I was in the air and he wasn't on the plane. So I could relax for a few hours between Washington State and South Carolina.
It felt free.
Just for that, but
right.
But there was so much, like the video visits, and she wouldn't sit and talk with him. I'm like, she's 2. She doesn't sit and talk with anybody.
Right.
She's not going to sit and have a conversation like you and I are having a conversation. She's 2. I'm not sure what you want her to do, but she's there and she'll show you her toys and she, back and forth and okay, whatever. But he would just berate me, but talk to her and berate me because he knew I was listening. And it was just awful. He would send gifts to her that were actually the things that he had taken from me years ago and send them back to her as gifts. It was just creepy.
That's weird.
It was awful.
Did you get your bathrobe?
I did, but only because the judge ordered him. Like, I made a list of things that I could remember, and the judge ordered him to give all those things back.
What woman wants somebody else's hand-me-downs? Or, you know what I mean? Like, it had nothing to do.
Like, why and what? And
it had nothing to do with another woman. He just wanted to hurt you.
Exactly. It was just and I have read some of the things that say that abusers have been abused themselves. But as an adult, we all have choices. We make our own decisions. Now, my daughter at 2, she can't help who her parents were, right? But as an adult, we make decisions and we're responsible for our actions. It's not like, oh, oops, my hand slipped and slapped you. No, you did that. You kicked my feet out from under me. You hurt me.
I definitely think there's a cycle of abuse. Like, let's see, like a lot of serial killers and things like that, they were all either abused or molested themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
The thing is, you got to learn to break the cycle. You have to know that you don't want to keep doing that. And that's where it comes in.
Well, and that was a conversation that he and I had before we adopted my daughter was, he said, I know that if I am everything that my parents weren't, that I will be a good parent. Like that was a conscious decision, but it didn't stick, right? It may have been a conscious decision, but it wasn't a lasting decision. So that's the part that, I hang on to is the idea that it was his choice, right? He didn't have to grab me. He didn't have to do all the other things. He didn't have to do those things. That was a conscious or unconscious choice, but at some point there has to be like you said, the breaking of that cycle. Yes, my mom was the oldest of 5 children, and her dad cheated on my grandmother with a 16-year-old, basically. And if he didn't marry her way back then, he was going to jail. So my grandmother divorced him in the age where there was a divorce, back in the 1950s. And my grandfather had 5 other children with this other lady, and they all had money, but he never paid any child support so my mom wore the flower bag dresses and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of, trauma, generational trauma there. My dad was also a foster child. So, so there's generational trauma there. And then I married Dirk, and I thought, oh, no, what a nice Christian young man. And, we met at a church picnic and all this kind of stuff. And that's not, that's not how that turned out. I missed a lot of red flags. I only dated him for 6 months, and I should have dated him longer. But again, and there's that pressure of, oh, you're 25, you should be married and have children by now, and it's better to be married than to burn with lust and all this kind of, these kind of things that just, are unrealistic expectations. And so, there are times when I feel like, and my husband now and I talk about, what if I had made different decisions? And he said, but you wouldn't be the woman that I love and the person that you are today if those things didn't happen to you. Not that I would wish them on you, but they made you a stronger person. And yeah, I wouldn't wish them on anyone. But I can truly say that my daughter and I have been through hell together and back. And, we have a great relationship. My husband now is amazing. And I did not meet him at a church picnic. If you read my book, he and I were playing it's an MMORPG. So we're both nerdy computer gamers, PC gamers. And one night over voice over IP, over Ventrilo, we were chatting about with a mutual friend. We had never met, but a mutual friend of ours was telling us that we should meet because we both had similar bad tastes or bad dates. My friends decided that since I had this horrendous marriage, I should get back out there and date. And so I dated a man who said he was a firefighter, but when I brushed a rock out of my flip-flop, he wouldn't touch my hand again because it was germy. He was a germaphobe. And then there was another guy who texted me from the men's room to tell me that he was having a great time on our date. What a lovely time he was having. And okay, so hint, do not text anyone from the men's or women's room during the date, even. And then so I was a little weirded out by that. So, we I finished eating kind of quickly and I had to go home. He must have texted me 10 times in the 15 minutes that it took me to drive back to my apartment. And I was like, I didn't answer because I was driving. But then when I answered, I was like, I think we're kind of all set. Thanks, though.
Because now you see the red flag.
Now I see the red flags. And I'm like, if you're texting me from the bathroom, yeah, no.
Hard pass.
Hard pass. Exactly. So we were sharing stories, and he had told this story about how this woman that he took out said that global warming was ruining her tan. And so we laughed and we laughed. And there's another woman who apparently he was out at a restaurant and he picked up the salt shaker and added salt to his food. And she told him that he was way old and he was going to die soon. And he was,
oh my God.
So we compared bad dates. And then he said, you know what? I need to save the reputation of the male humans. And I laughed and said, yeah, okay, I've heard that before. And he said, what will it take to convince you? And I said, a flight, an airline flight itinerary and a hotel reservation, because I don't know you and you're not staying with me. And he said, give me 30 minutes. Not 20 minutes later, in my email box was an airline flight itinerary and a hotel reservation to come down to South Carolina to see me. It was so we had more fun that weekend, but we walked around Charleston. We saw all the sights. We laughed. We talked. We stayed up all night just talking and laughing. And my daughter stayed with my brother and sister-in-law for the weekend. And he and I just hit it off. And, it took us we hung out or kind of dated for about 3 years. And then we were engaged for a year before we got married. But we have such a great relationship. And I can tell you that we're like best friends now.
That's great.
But it took us time. It took time to heal, and it took time to get to know one another. And I wouldn't trade him for the world. He's amazing.
No, that's great. I'm very happy for you. I'm glad you found happiness. You deserve it.
And what's funny is when he proposed to me, the next morning he came in and he had come to South Carolina to see me and my daughter. And he sat her on the couch and he said, can I marry your mom? And she looked right at him and she said, no. And she ran off to her room. And he looked at me like, no, I thought she liked me. And I said, she loves you. So he went into her room and she had made a tea party. And she was like 5 at the time. And a tea party, she took the letter T from her magnetic letters and put it in the teapot. So that was the tea party, right? So she made tea and she was pouring the tea into the cups for him. And he said, if I marry your mom, I'll get to live with you all the time. Or we can live together all the time. But if I don't marry your mom, then we'll still have to come and, I'll have to come and visit. And she's like, okay, you can marry us then. So our family anniversary is June 11th. And
I love that.
So she calls it our family anniversary.
That's so sweet.
And it's really cute. And so we have a family anniversary and we do family stuff on our family anniversary. So it's, just the things that you don't expect, like making the tea and and okay, you can marry us and it's our family anniversary now. So, and it has been amazing to make good memories where there were evil ones.
Absolutely. You need those those will never go away. And those do make you who you are today. Right. But at least now you are in a whole different mind frame.
Absolutely.
You're free. Absolutely. Do you want to let everyone know where we can find your book?
Sure. So my book is available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, but it's called I'll Pray for You. A Woman's Guide to Surviving Domestic Abuse or Domestic Violence. And my website is www.authordwales.org. And as always, the National Domestic Abuse Hotline. And those are the people who know all the right things. And honestly, those are the people that helped save my life.
It's important to know the resources that are out there because they're out there.
Absolutely. Yep.
Just got to want better for yourself.
Absolutely. And that's a tough place to be.
It really is, but it's empowering at the same time. When you take your life back, it's like you finally got glasses on.
Yes, absolutely. So much. And there's so much good in the world now that I can do to share my story so that other people hopefully won't have to go through what I went through or can get out of where I was.
Yes, it is possible.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on. I really enjoyed this.
It was great. Thanks.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you guys follow me on Instagram, but if you do, you will see that I said I was revamping the show. As much as I love the crime shows, I really want to interview people. I want to hear the real life story from them. I mean, that's better, right? So make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe. That way you know when I'm releasing a new episode. It may not be every week. Also coming soon is a whole new Crime Over Cocktails website, so stay tuned for that. Should be live any day now. All right, you guys, we'll talk crime another time. Bye.